Now, let's start to look at the idea of entering into triangles in a reactive fashion. So far, almost all the entries into front triangles that we looked at involved us initiating the action. We went after our opponent. We got grips, we generated kabushi, and we fought our way into the triangle. Now we're going to look at the situation where our opponent is actively working against us. He's trying to pass our guard. And as he goes to pass, as he establishes his grips, there's going to be opportunities for us to react to what he's doing and take triangles. Okay. The first one we're going to look at involves a situation fairly obvious where my opponent has double scoop grips on my body, just like so. Okay. Now this is a very common and very effective form of passing my guard. You can see that we're one step away from a one in, one out situation. If I could just pommel one of my legs inside my opponent's arms, you'd have a triangle. Okay. So in a situation like this, the question is, how am I going to do that? Well, the first problem is he has locked hands. The second problem is he's got control of my hips. That's not good. I can't really move my hips side to side and pommel my legs in. So the first thing we're going to do here is we're going to bring our hips up and point our knees, just straight up like so. So our body goes into a straight line. That makes it harder for him in situations like this to prevent me getting access to his wrists. Okay, so I want to access his two wrists and thumb post inside them, and as a result I can start a shimmying action. My legs go out and straighten, and from here I shimmy like I'm taking off a tight pair of pants. There's no other way to say that. From here I get one knee inside my training partner's wrist, and as a result I'm able to point the knee outwards and start a pommeling action that draws my opponent in. As soon as we've drawn our opponent in, the next thing I want to do is climb to the armpit, and as a result we're in the perfect position to cut across the back of our training partner's neck and lock up a trap triangle. As he goes to pull away from us in this situation, it's always the same story. We're always pulling in with the knees. We're always feeding the arm across and getting access to our training partner's head. And as a result, we can start that turn that brings our body around the corner and enables us to lock the figure of four directly over our training partner's head. And as a result, we get a good finish. Once again, from a situation where my training partner gets a hold of my two hips just like so. Initially from here, I want to prevent him from throwing my legs to one side or the other. So we bring our body up just like so. That enables us to access our training partner's wrists. From that double thumb post, we shimmy with our hips so that I can bring one knee inside my training partner's elbow. Now from here, my hips climb, we throw the leg over the top. He's going to be trying to pull away in this position. So we want to have our leg anchored to his back. Once we get our feet locked behind, he tries to pull away. Look how my knees pull in. The more he pulls away, the more I pull in with my knees, the easier it becomes to swim around the corner and get a hold of our training partner's head. Now from here with my 2 feet pointing forward, it's a relatively simple thing to turn everything in. He goes to yank away from me, and everything we do is about that lock up, my knee pointing into his crotch, and as a result, we get a very strong finishing position. So that would be one fine example of using a reactive method of entering into a triangle. That was when my opponent was underneath both of my legs and had his hands locked. Let's look now at a situation where instead of having hands locked, just lie down, he has a very common situation where the hands are unlocked, but he's still underneath my two legs. Okay, so rather than the previous move where the hands were locked, here he's just working like so. Okay. Similarly, in situations like this, once someone goes underneath my two legs, I always want to be able to form angles on my training partner. I don't want to be lined up directly in front of him. That's when he can start stacking me, causing problems. Okay? So we always want in situations like this to take our hips up off the mat and start pommeling legs in. The skill that I want to develop is the skill of pommeling our legs through and around our training partner and securing our training partner's arm. Now we have the classic one in, one out position. When he goes to pull away from me, it's always about that trap triangle. He goes to yank, and we pull in, pulling him in like so. He goes to posture up, and that's the perfect time for us to make that turn. Keep your posture, and then from here, go in and make the various adjustments that we're always looking for. And as a result, a tight figure of four for the finish. So once again, we have a training partner around this way with his two arms in, locked like so. We're always looking in situations like this to create an angle on our training partner. I secure my training partner's wrist, I come out to an angle, and as a result we get an opportunity to pommel one foot through and around behind our training partner's arm like so. Now we're in the perfect position to hook over our training partner's head and lock our feet. As he goes to yank away from us, it's always going to be a battle here for posture. We pommel through and around. As he goes to posture up and away, we get a hold of our training partner's head, we scoop in on the leg, and from here we start moving around the corner. Now from here, everything turns in, my two lower legs pointing in the same direction, so when we lock the figure of 4, we get a good tight strangle with our knee pointing in towards the crotch. This would be a good second example of a reactive entry into a triangle. Let's look at a third entry now. In a very popular form of guard pass, the over-under guard pass. My opponent goes in on my legs and hips and controls my two hips. So, for a situation, let's come on this one, where my opponent is in here, controlling like so. As he comes up off the floor and puts weight on me in situations like this, we want to start off balancing our opponent. I would love to be able to free my right leg. If I could, I'd be in a triangle. So what I'm going to do in this situation, I'm going to hold my opponent's wrist on the far side, and I'm going to use a tilting action, which tilts my opponent down to the mat. Okay? So as he puts pressure and weight on me here, we're going to use our knee as a lever, and I take my second leg down to the floor, and everything tilts over in this direction here. I control my training partner's elbow, and as a result, we quickly lock up like so. As he goes to pull away from us now, we do the same thing we're always doing, pulling in with the two knees. We go in over our training partner's shoulder, he goes to posture up and away, and we hold on to the head, and as a result, we can get that same turn that we're always characterizing as the ideal for the triangle. Once again, we start off in the over-under position, just in like so. I hold onto my training partner's elbow, and from here I engage in a tilting motion, like a strong body. From here, everything tilts over to the side, and as a result, I can extract my foot. From here, we cross our ankles. He goes to posture up and away from us. We're always pulling in with the two knees so we can get control of our training partner's head. Now from here, we turn the corner, find ourselves in the perfect position to lock up the figure of 4 and get the finish. So those are some common sense ways in which we can react to our opponent's attempts to pass us with strong forward pressure. Off those reactions, a simple action of off balancing and pommeling, getting a little angle on our training partner. As we pommel one leg in, we find ourselves in the one in, one out situation, which is the one we're always actively trying to find. Once we get there, we get to a trap triangle. We just follow the steps that we've portrayed so far to get into the figure 4 and strangle. Okay, most of the front triangle material that we've worked on so far has been from bottom position. And I think it's fair to say in most current jiu-jitsu competition, the majority of front triangles do occur from bottom position. It's more closely associated with that. But don't let that blind you to the fact that there are many very effective front triangles done from top position too. We're going to start looking in that direction now. One of the first times we can start to engage our training partner from top position is as we're passing his guard. Okay. Most of the time when I'm working on an opponent who's employing guard position, most of the time we're looking to pass his guard, and he knows that, and he has what he's thinking in terms of is stopping his guard from being passed. But a nice way to throw a spanner in the works is to start throwing submission holds as I'm passing. Now my opponent's got two things to worry about instead of one. Instead of him just worried about my guard passing, now he's got to worry about being submitted at the same time. Now bear in mind that anytime someone uses guard position, particularly in a situation like this, seated guard versus a standing opponent, inevitably there's a lot of reaching on the part of both of the athletes. Okay, there's a lot of grip fighting, and from here there will often be extension of an arm. We can learn to take advantage of this and start attacking with front triangles. Okay, this is a move that I haven't done since my hip replacement, so let's hope this works out well. From a situation where I come in on my training partner and we engage in the usual hand fights and movements where we're trying to move people, etc., etc. From here, there will often be an extension where I'll see a posted hand and I will go over the top and take an over tie on my training partner. Okay, this happens more or less spontaneously in any hard grip fighting situation. So as we come out with our training partner, we work in this situation. I see an opportunity. There's my over tie. Okay, turn briefly towards the camera. Normally, when I'm working here, I like to take inside positions to protect myself from my opponent's leg locks. This is the exception to the rule. This is a move that works extremely well from outside foot position. It works very well against people who prefer the inside position. So if I see Placido has his two feet on the inside, that's what I'm looking for. Okay, I step my foot to the outside position and I over tie just like so. Come back. So once again, we start off with our training partner, a hand fighting situation. We're playing, here's my overtie, I step to the outside position, and in one motion, I take my leg directly over my training partner's arm, just like so. I lock up, I land on an elbow, so I can still move. If he stays where he is, I'll go through and lock top position. If he rolls up on top of me, I still have the triangle, we lock, and we're in position to go. Once again, from a situation we start off, hand fighting, just like so. In the course of the hand fight, I see an opportunity to go. I step up, and there's my body position. As I make the step, I just throw everything over the top of the shoulder. Because I still have a collar tie, when he postures up, it's very, very difficult. When he goes to stand up and away from me, it's so easy for us to turn in on the inside and lock up the figure of 4 for the finish. Once again, you'll notice that I jump across his body. For this particular version, I don't go straight into him. It's like I fall across and I fall on one side. In this case, it's my right hand side. So as I come in and we play the game, I take a left hand overtie, left foot outside step penetration. Right leg will become the strangle arm, and I fall onto my right side. And as a result, when we lock the figure of 4, we're in business and ready to strangle. One more time. What I want to avoid is just crashing straight forward onto my training partner. It's like I jump across him at a diagonal angle. So here we are, playing our usual game, and there's the catch. I'm in the outside position. From the outside position, I just throw everything over his shoulder, and there's the triangle for the finish. Okay? This can be a very useful way of attacking from outside foot position on top while you're passing your opponent's guard. It has a lot of surprise value, and it's pretty practical. It doesn't require any kind of extraordinary athleticism. If a 52-year-old with a fake hip can do it, I know you can too. Let's look at a second variation of a triangle done while we're passing guard. My opponent's in a seated position and I'm in a standing position. It doesn't look that different from the one we just did previously, but there are some significant differences. It is a different move, it has a different angle, it's much more front on than the previous move, and the gripping sequence is different. They both work extremely well. We'll face this one towards the camera so you can see the different grip configurations. We've seen that as we come out to play in a position like so, there's often a strong and vociferous fight for grips in this kind of situation. So as we do this, often there's a reaching game where my opponent will go out and reach. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to get a hold of my training partner with a collar tie. It's relatively safe for me to do that because I'm standing tall. Okay, I'm taller than him in this position. He's seated, I'm standing. Okay, if I were down on my knees doing this, you'd be setting yourself up for arm locks. But it's hard for him to come up off the floor and arm lock me in this position. Okay, so as we come out towards our training partner, we go through and we secure a collar tie and a wrist. Okay, now I've grabbed this arm, his left arm. Okay, so most of his attention is focused on the left arm. What he's not thinking about is his right arm, but that's the one I'm going to triangle. Okay, so what we'll often do is I'll take either top wrist or inside wrist, it doesn't really matter, and we control here and we pull. He goes to pull away, etc., etc. He's trying to pull his arm out, and he's concerned about the arm that I'm gripping. Okay, but this is the arm that I'm thinking about. Remember, I have to achieve one in, one out. I have to take one of his arms and lock it inside my legs and keep one of his arms outside. So as we come in towards our training partner, we go into our usual grip fight situation. From here I get my initial control, I just push this one down and I jump more front on this time. It's more into my opponent. So I push this one down, now I take my step to the outside with my left foot, and then I just go right over the top like I'm jumping guard. Then from here, I just cross my trap triangle. From this position, you've got your trap triangle, that's all we need. We know that the whole game now is the transition from trap triangle to figure 4. Now, my hand was on the outside. I don't want that. I lift, punch through, control the head. He goes to posture up and away from me. We're always looking to turn that corner. Now, wedge all around the head and shoulders. We lock up the figure of 4, and there's our finish. So you'll see there's a difference in grip. We're not over tying. We're just taking a collar tie and a wrist. And at the same time, the angle is different. It's much more of a frontal jump rather than a diagonal jump across. One of the key elements is the idea that when you lock, don't try to lock a triangle. Don't think about locking the figure of 4. Think as though you were trying to jump guard on a seated opponent. And you're locking a guard around a head and an arm instead of his waist. That's the mental image that I want you working with. So, once again, we have an opponent as we engage in typical hand fight behavior here. We're working, moving, posting the head, hand fighting, etc. That's where I go. I go in and catch. Okay? His focus gets put on this arm. That's the one that I'm gripping. Okay? So typically there's a pullback reaction which sets up my triangle. I want his elbow back to his own hips. So I pull him here. That's exactly what he gives me. Now I step up and I jump more or less straight onto my training partner. I'm not thinking about locking a triangle when I jump. I just think about crossing my ankles. So I just go straight forward and cross. Now we've got that trap triangle that we like so much. I catch a hold of my training partner's head. He goes to pull up and away. From here, we make the turn that we always do to lock up the figure of 4 and get our finishing hold. I'm going to demonstrate it facing the other way. I'm sitting right here. We move in on our training partner. We play our usual game from standing position. There's the catch, and now in one motion, I just go straight through. We punch up, the legs go around, hooking in, and there's our triangle for the finish. A slight variation of a jumping triangle on the seated opponent where we can get to finish from top position, at least enter from top position as we're passing guard. Now we're looking at the idea of a front triangle, and as I said, most of what we've been through so far has been front triangles from bottom position, but now we're starting to shift our emphasis to front triangles from top position. We looked at situations where we were passing an open guard and we were jumping over our opponent and going into front triangles. Now let's look at situations where you're past your opponent's guard. You're across your opponent's side and you're thinking about using triangles as a method of achieving a submission hold. A few general points to start off with. Let's have Placido in bottom side control, just like so. First, let's understand that anytime you go to pin someone across side, they're going to have a near arm frame and a far arm frame. Okay, the near arm one obviously is on the side that I'm on. When my hips are in here with my training partner, that's going to be his near arm frame. Okay, the other one will be in a variety of different positions depending upon what he's looking to do with his framing defensive arms. Okay, if I want to enter into a triangle in situations like this, there's a bunch of ways I can operate, and it's important to distinguish between which arm do I wish to trap inside my legs. Remember, there's a sense in which, as I've pointed out on several occasions, every triangle is really the telling of the same story. It's always a story about trapping one of your opponent's arms inside your legs and pushing the other one outside your legs, so that you create what we call the one in, one out scenario. One of his arms is trapped inside of your legs, one of his arms is trapped outside of your legs. The question is, how am I going to do that cross-side? I've got two choices. I can trap the far arm or the near arm. Let's start off with near arm traps right here. Okay, how am I going to trap that near arm? It's not easy because his arm's in a good defensive position, framed in on my hips. I need to do something. I need some kind of method to trap that arm in a way where I can set up triangles. Let's look at some pretty simple, commonsensical methods of doing so. Okay, here's one which we can use all the time. For a situation where I'm across my training partner's side, I'm going to change my hand grips, just in like so. So I go to an over grip on my opponent instead of the usual cross-face method. I'm going to walk down towards my training partner's hips, but I'm walking down to crowd the hips. Okay. Once I get there, I put my buttocks and lower back against his elbow behind me. Okay. So I switch from a situation where his elbow is in here, in my hip, to one where I walk away from the elbow and I put his elbow behind my buttocks and back. Now, he can make his arms strong and resistant. It means very little. I'm just going to use the power of my lower back to shift and move his elbow up beyond the shoulder line. Okay? Always remember that your opponent has what we call a shoulder line. That's a line that joins his two shoulders. What I want to do is I want to take his elbow above his shoulder line. He obviously wants his elbows in close to his rib cage. That's a good defensive position for him. I want the exact opposite. I want an elbow extended out and away into a vulnerable position above his shoulder line. The question is, how are you going to do that? Well, we're looking at the hip dragging method, where from here I come down to my training partner's hips with my hips. I bring my hips in close to his rib cage, and then from here I start walking backwards and trapping his arm in this position here. Okay, let's rotate a little bit this way. So you can see his arm is well trapped against my hips. The further I go back, the more his elbow gets trapped up against above his shoulder line. Now we're going to come back to our knees. But when I come back to my knees, I want to do so in a way where I don't lose the progress I've made trapping his elbow. So I post my hand, I heist, and I brush my knee up against him like so. So you can see what's happened. Placido's elbow is trapped out in a very vulnerable position where it's locked between my elbow, his own head, and my left hip. When he tries to pull his elbow back into a safety position, it's very difficult. His elbow is caught up in the geometry of my hips, and as a result we can hold him here quite successfully. From a position like this, we're going to bring our arm back and lock it in. When he tries to take his arm out, it's now locked between my elbow and my hip. Now from here, we're going to rise a little bit. We're going to come away from the chest-to-chest position. So he's in a good defensive frame. We're going to come up and we're going to catch our training partner's wrist and push it inwards. Now we're going to take our hand and go just like so behind the head. Most importantly, we're going to rise and level. And I face forwards in this direction, not across his body. From here, I take my body forwards past his head. Don't try to do this move with your head over his chest. It's very, very hard for you to free your right leg. So the whole motion here is one where everything goes forward and my chin goes over my own knee. And as a result, it becomes very easy for me to whip my leg around the corner and catch my training partner in place. Now I take my leg and I hook it underneath my training partner's neck. I bring my legs forward and my head goes to the mat. And as a result, I can quickly and easily lock the figure of four. Whether I elect to finish from here or fall down to bottom position doesn't really matter. They're both great options and the triangle is well locked. So let's start off just in like so. My opponent has arms in good defensive position where they should be, in close to his rib cage. We're going to start off just like so. I bring my arm across the body, I come down to the hip, and I walk and shift my hips to this sit-through position, just like so. I post on my training partner's near leg. I make sure my hips come in close to his armpit so that when I move back, his arm gets caught behind me. Now, when I come back up to my knees, I use my knee to trap his arm in place. I bring my arms back. From here, I pop up and pin his wrist down. My head comes up, his head comes up, and I put my head over my own left knee. As a result, I can bring my knee upwards. From this knee position, I throw my leg across his chest and curl my foot in behind him. From here, we lock up. There's the figure of four. You could strangle here, or you could roll through and get a good finishing position like so. Let's have a look at it from another angle. From a situation where my opponent has good defensive arm position, we start off just like so. I bring my elbow across. I bring my hand down to the hip and I walk all the way down to his hips. I post on his leg and I start inching backwards, driving his elbow up above the shoulder line. Now we post the floor, we switch our base, and when we come up, we've got his arm well trapped. I come in and hold. When he tries to pull his right arm back into a position of safety, it's exceptionally difficult. From here, I rise just enough that I can pin his hand to his sternum and chest. As I come up, my hips rise in elevation. My head goes directly over my own knee. If my head is over his chest, it's very hard for me to pick my right leg up. The whole thing is to create extension so that my knee can come up. Once my knee goes up over his chest, now we're in the perfect position to throw our leg around the corner and curl the leg in. The two knees come forward. I walk forward on my hands and lock the figure of 4 for a strangle either here or here. And either way, we'll get a very strong finish. This simple method of isolating the near arm is a very effective way to go into triangles from top side position. Now we're looking at the idea of front triangle applied from top position. In the previous move, we looked at a very, very effective and pretty well known method of entering into front triangles from side control. Now, earlier in this video, we talked about the idea of these two main ways to get into what we're calling this one in, one out position for the front triangle. These are foot penetration methods and knee penetration methods. And we've seen in any given generic triangle situation, we have a choice between penetrating with the knee first and then following with the foot, or from situations where there's more distance, penetrating with the foot first and the knee second. Okay, and we enter in like so. Exactly the same is true when we look at front triangles from top situations. Let's quickly review the previous move and look and understand it in light of foot penetration. We saw that if we trap our training partner's arm against our hip and we push our training partner's hand down towards the sternum, we can rise and level change upwards. Then we bring our head over our own knee, and as a result, we can bring our leg up and create a weighted and unweighted leg. My left leg bears all my weight, my right leg bears no weight. And as a result, we could quickly step over the top and lock up over our training partner's neck and go forward into a triangle. Okay? That was obviously an example of my foot penetrating first. Let's have a look at it again. So we've got an arm trapped, just in like so. I create a sense where I bring my knee up and my foot penetrates over my training partner's leg first. Okay? Now, of all of you out there watching this video, some may be thinking that requires more agility than I have. Well, I've got good news and bad news. Yes, it does require some agility. The good news, however, it requires very little if it's done right. What is going to throw you off more than anything else is your balance. When we come up, if my head is between my knees, it just feels impossible for me to get my right leg up into a triangle position. Everything is about my head going over my left knee. It's that which makes my right knee light and easy to pick up. Then from here, I just extend and pass my foot over the top and curl it inwards so that I sit on top of his arm. Now we've created the one in, one out situation. One arm is trapped inside the legs, and as my leg goes around the corner, the other leg comes out. Now you have one out, one in, and you're ready to go into the move. Okay? So as long as we shift our head over one of our legs and unweight one of the opposite leg, it's easy for you to pick the leg up and go in. It doesn't require any kind of extraordinary athleticism. It does have one disadvantage, however. It creates space. Okay? If I trap my training partner's arm in here and I come up, there's a period where there's quite a bit of space and you could potentially lose things here. That's why this tends to be a fast man's move. Okay? It's not so much a balance issue, it's a speed issue. If I come up here and I'm in this period, in this situation for any length of time, I could pull his elbow short and then I can come over the top and have nothing. Okay? So there's a sense in which I didn't have to be the fastest guy in the world, but I can't hang around either. This is a move where you can't delay. So done in practice, it has a look where everything's tied in, and then we make a commitment right from the start. As we come up, boom, we just step over the top and we're into the triangle. Okay. Some of you may be saying, man, I don't know if I can do that. I'm not sure if I have the agility or the speed to go into a move like that. Well, my first answer is, if I'm 52 with a hip replacement, you should be able to do this fairly easily. It's just a matter of training. But nonetheless, let's look at an alternative method which also works very well. Instead of penetrating with the foot, we're going to penetrate with the knee. Okay, it's a little bit easier, and it has one big advantage over the previous method. There's a lot less space for your opponent to pull away from. It's slower, but it's tighter. Okay, so just like before, we're locked in. Our opponent's in good defensive position. We move down to the hips, and we use our hips and buttocks to clear his elbow out of good defensive position and make it vulnerable. We plant, pop up, and we trap our training partner's arm in close. This time, as I go to push in on my training partner, I'm not going to bring my head up. I'm going to bring my head down and across. I'm going to go across to the floor. As I do that, I'm going to start not with holding my opponent's wrist as I did the previous move. I'm going to shoot my hand through to the bicep. Very different grip. As I go across, my fist goes on the mat and I clear his fist out of the way. I'm going to bring my knee up and penetrate with the knee, not the foot. And as a result, I'm able to turn around the corner and scoot. And as a result, my knee penetrates very easily through the shoulder. Now I just windshield wipe on my legs, and we lock the trap triangle. We know that every triangle is essentially the same story. It's the progression from a trap triangle to a figure four. We catch a hold of our training partner's head as he goes to pull away from me. We keep everything in tight, turn the corner, and from here we lock up the figure of four for a tight finish. Let's have a look at that again. From a situation where we start off with our opponent in a good defensive position. First, we need to trap the near arm. So we go in, move our body down, and we come back to trap the near arm. From here, with the near arm trapped, I take my hand and I punch through on my training partner and I dominate the inside position at the bicep. So when Placido tries to bring his hand back, it's difficult, it's blocked out from the inside. Now I drive forward on my training partner and I bring my knee to my own hand. I bring my elbow out and I use my elbow as a prop to turn the corner and extract my foot. So I penetrated with the knee first and the foot second. I lock a trap triangle. From here we go in and control our training partner's head. As always, we turn the corner, he goes to posture up and away, and finds it a difficult thing. Now we just lock the figure of four and the strangle is complete. So this is an excellent alternative method based on knee penetration rather than foot penetration to give much less space for escape, and works well for athletes who are perhaps a slower moving athlete, and they can still work very effective triangles from top position. Now, we've been looking at the idea of using the front triangle from top side control. We're trapping our training partner's near side arm and then stepping over either with a knee drive or a foot penetration to push the far arm out of our legs and create a one in, one out situation. Let's look at a common problem associated with this method of attack and a simple solution. Okay, we know that ultimately we want to trap our training partner's arm in here. Okay, that's our goal. Okay, we saw one particular method of doing so was to use our hips and buttocks to move back and trap our opponent's arm like this. Okay, and as a result we were able to either push the hand down and use a foot penetration over the top, or to take the inside position and use a knee penetration over the shoulder. The common problem associated with this method is that people will lose control of this arm. And remember, the whole move, either one of those two, is based on the idea of controlling this arm. So you have one arm trapped inside your legs and one arm trapped outside your legs, the one in, one out scenario that we're always talking about. What if I lose this arm? Okay, first off, how am I going to lose the arm? How could that occur? Well, if I'm in good position, in like so, if my opponent goes to turn into me to pull the arm out, it's very, very difficult. If he wants to extract his arm from this precarious situation, the smart thing for him to do is to turn in this direction. And now he can get the elbow inside, then he turns back to face me, and he goes for his regular escapes. Okay? So whenever I see my opponent turning away in this direction, I'm going to take advantage of this and take inside thumb position at my training partner's wrist. As he completes the turn, I'm just going to push through and put my hand right here inside his armpit. Okay? When he tries to come back and face me, my forearm prevents him from doing so. You can even double up on it like so for a short period of time. Okay? Now let's change our perspective. Do you see how he's extracted his elbow? His elbow is now inside my hip. I wanted it here, outside my hip. But he's brought it to a safe position on the inside. Okay? However, when he tries to turn back and face me, my left arm now prevents him. From this position, I'm going to walk down his hips and recapture my training partner's elbow. Now, I'm going to come down, let's face this way, into a situation where I place my foot right next to my training partner's elbow, and we go to sit. I pass my foot inside my training partner's armpit, and now you have the 1 in 1 out. The 1 in 1 out position is always the prerequisite to the triangle. From here, I control my training partner's chin and I get a hold of my own shin. My second leg comes up, and from here it's such a simple thing for us to go around the corner and lock up a different form of triangle, Ushiro Senkaku. When he goes to pull away from us now, it's so difficult, and the strangle comes on immediately. So once again, we have our training partner's arm trapped out, just as it was for all the previous variations that we looked at of this move. Now, from this general situation, my opponent goes to turn away to free his arm. We push and post. As a result, when he tries to come back towards me, his own arm prevents him. That's going to make it pretty easy for me to go around the corner and re-trap my training partner's arm. As I sit down, I pass my foot inside his armpit. And as a result, we're in the perfect position to control our training partner's head, lock up the figure of 4, and then attack with Ushiro Senkaku for a strong finish strangle arm lock combination. This is an excellent way for us to get around that common problem of losing the near side arm when we're attempting triangles from top. Of course, we finished with a different triangle, the Ushiro Senkaku, or rear triangle, rather than the front triangle. But still, we're staying with our triangles and getting the strangulation win. We're looking at the idea of attacking with front triangles out of side position. Let's look now at a variation. We've seen one way to control our training partner's arm is to wedge it high up above the shoulder line. But that's not the only method. Another very effective method is to pin my opponent's biceps down to the floor with my shin. We often refer to this as a shin pin because my shin is pinning down on my training partner's bicep. Question is, how are you going to do that? How are you going to take your opponent from good defensive arm position and get that hand and arm down to the floor and pin it? That's not an easy thing to do. So we're going to start off just like so, and we're going to sit our body through. As he goes to push in on our hips in situations like this, we're going to take our head over our training partner's far shoulder, and we're going to start the action of pushing down. I'm going to take the inside wrist position, okay, where my thumb goes inside and my wrist bends back at 90 degrees. We saw other applications of that earlier in the video. Let's look now to situate arms in. From here, where I bring my body weight forward and I start an action of pushing down on my training partner's arm. And as a result, I'm able to go forward with my knee and take the inside position with my knee just like so. Once we get to a position like this, it's an easy thing to keep that shin pinned down on the floor. Now, I'm going to take my opponent's second hand and we're going to push it outwards and put our hand and arm around so we have both of his arms controlled. One's controlled with an underhook on the far side and one is controlled with my shin position on the other. Now from here, we're going to go driving across our training partner's body. And I'm going to bring my knee into my training partner's armpit, just like so. As a result, we find ourselves in a situation where you've created a 1 in, 1 out type situation. One of his arms is locked outside of my legs by my knee, and the other is trapped inside my legs by my right knee. Now, from a situation like this, it's not a difficult thing for us to start an action of turning across our training partner and creating good attacking opportunities. Look how I fall across my training partner's body. As I make the fall, I now have a knee behind his shoulder, blocking him in place. All that's required now is I pull my foot back and pommel over my training partner's shoulder like so. If my opponent elects to stay in this position, he says, he wants to pull me up into a triangle, and he stays in this position, that's suicide. Because now he's given me Udigatami, and from here we get a quick submission hold. So my opponent has to commit forward and come up. But when he does so, of course, he comes straight up into the triangle. From a position like this, it's not difficult for us now to start clearing our opponent's arm, either like so, or if you like a more old-fashioned approach, we bring the elbow across. Okay. However you choose to do it, from here, one thing stays the same. We always need angle and postural control. And as a result, we can quickly lock up the figure of 4 and get our stranglehold in place. So once again, we start off with our training partner in like so. We're going to start with an action of sitting through like so on our training partner. As his arms are in good position here, working, we sit through. We take the inside position and push down. I take my knee and I go over my training partner's bicep like so. From here, I put forward pressure on my training partner's arm so we can easily pass his arm to the outside. Now from here, we go through and hug on our training partner's arm. I bring my knee up into the armpit. As I come up, my knee goes high up into my training partner's armpit. I slouch over to the side. As we fall over to our hip, we create a dilemma for our opponent. If he stays where he is, I have a very strong Udigatami attack. So he has to start coming up. So I retract my foot as he comes up to top position. I kick over his shoulder. Now from here, as he comes up, we're locked in place and ready to go. Here we've got a great chance to go into the front triangle. There's the trap triangle locked in place. From here, we need angle. We scoop inside and find ourselves in perfect position to attack with the front triangle. This is a very practical way of attacking from side pins with the front triangle. Now, let's change our focus to the front triangle working out of mounted position. From a situation where we've achieved the mounted position of our training partner, typically, in order to attack triangles, we're going to have to generate some method of taking at least one of my opponent's arms, in particular the elbow, up above his shoulder line. We know that our opponent typically won't give us that for free. He'll have his arms in a good defensive position. So we're going to get underneath my training partner's head and arm, just like so. We'll have our arm out here for base of support, and I will put my forearm and wrist underneath his elbow. I start an action of walking out, make a strong arm. We start an action of walking outwards, like so. Periodically, you're going to run into situations where you can't go any further forward. He's pulling down sharply with his elbow, and you're working to lift it up. When we see that, we straighten the arm, and then we resume walking. Every time we run into strong resistance, we just straighten the arm. So we walk forward with a ratchet-like action, where we go, for every inch we go forward, we stay going forward. We never go backwards, like a good ratchet. Now, from here, we lever the elbow all the way up towards the crown of the head until we can lift and lock in with our two arms around the head and the shoulder. Now, from positions like this, I always want to get my opponent's arm across the center line and lock up in a good tight attacking position where I can start taking my chin around the outside of my training partner's arm. That's going to make it possible for us to bring our knee up to our elbow and start an action of sitting out to the side and hugging the head inwards. As his arms come in defensively, we're going to take our hand and push our training partner's wrist down, and as a result we can step right over and go into a good attacking position. Now from here the legs curl underneath. We've achieved the 1 in 1 out position, and from here I put my forehead down to the mat. We lock the figure of 4 and we strangle for the finish. The key element here is the idea of creating a foot penetration for the trap triangle, which will ultimately set up the full stranglehold. So we start off in the mounted position, just like so. We get into a fairly conventional looking pin, and then from here we start the action of walking the elbow outwards. As we put progressively more and more pressure on our training partner. Walking, when we get stopped by resistance, we straighten. We walk, we get stopped by resistance, we straighten. And in this step-by-step method, we ensure that we get the elbow up towards the center line. Once we've gotten close, from here, we use our hand-over-hand method where we drive forward and trap our training partner's elbow in place. Now from here, I bring my knee up all the way to my own elbow. Let's turn around here. Once we get to a position like this, now we've got excellent control of the head and the arm. I take my hand and I catch my training partner's wrist and I push it underneath his own neck. As always, I put my head over my own knee, just as we did from the side position. And as a result, I can use a high leg action that puts my foot over the top of my training partner's shoulder. You've now achieved a 1 in 1 out position. From here we catch, we bring our head down to the floor so we can lock up the figure of 4. It doesn't matter whether we finish mounted like so, or if we slide through and end up in the bottom position. Once the triangle is locked, it doesn't matter between top and bottom, you'll get the same effects. So, once again, we start off, mounted position, we hook in, and we start that action of walking as far as we can go until we have to use that straightening action, which brings the arm up into a position where we can go forward and trap it. I bring the elbow forward like so, I catch my training partner's wrist, and everything goes around the corner until we can get into a nice tight triangle entry. As always, we eliminate the shoulder. You'll see if we turn around in this direction, Placido's shoulder is visible to the camera. That means that the shoulder has been eliminated. And as a result, it's an easy thing for us to go forward and lock up the figure of 4 and strangle for the finish. So the main lessons of the front triangle never really change. It's always about that progression, starting with the idea of a working grip. Then the idea of creating the 1 in 1 out situation. Eliminating the shoulder so that we can make a smooth transition from the initial trap triangle through to the figure of 4. You guys are starting to see the real theme here is lateral hip movement. Okay? If my hips become weightless, if I'm hanging my body weight off my opponent, it's very easy to move my hips side to side. And once we can generate effective side-to-side movement, you can throw your legs to a triangle pretty easily. So far, we've looked at doing it out of collar ties from close guard. We've looked at doing it from overhooks, from whizzer-buzzer seatbelt situations. Now we're going to look at it from underhooks and from half guard. Okay? From a situation where we're working in bottom position and we have a hand as a frame across our training partner, very often we're going to be able to put it in a knee shield and start digging our way around into an underhook situation like so. Now, typically when we work with underhooks, we're going to look to come up to an elbow, to prop ourselves up to an elbow underneath our training partner. Most of the time when we work with a grip underneath my opponent's arm, the main targets are our opponent's far hip or the near shoulder. But for the move we're about to do, we're going to hit a different target. We're going to come up and we're going to take our underhook across to the far trapezius. Okay? Why? Because if I go to my opponent's waist or the near shoulder, I feel the maximum effect of his whizzer. When he puts whizzer pressure on me, it tends to collapse me back down to a shoulder. Okay? However, when I bring my hand up across and take a far side underhook, it's much more difficult for my opponent now to put me down. Okay? It strongly negates the effect of that whizzer. Now from this position, I'm going to start playing a game with my feet. I'm going to place my feet right here at my training partner's knee, just like so. I'm going to come up to a hand right next to my training partner. I'm going to throw my foot over my training partner's lower back. And as a result, we create the same weightless effect where we can easily lock up on our training partner. Things will be a little bit different, however, because you have that underhook. When we first go into lock, I suggest just locking your feet. Now, his arm will be a bit of a problem for you here. So I generally recommend limping your arm free and going back over it. And then going back to your opponent's head. As he goes to pull away from us, as always from here, we hook inside our training partner's legs. We put our knee as a wedge behind his head, and our ankle and knee are very, very close together. The more he goes to pull away from us in situations like this, the easier it becomes for us to lock the figure of 4 and go through into a strong strangulation. Once again, we're going to start off Then bottom half guard, frame it in just like so. Now from here we go through and come up into this good attacking position. From here my hand comes all the way across, just like so. And we're in the perfect position now to come up off the floor. I generally recommend a step over our training partner's far hip. And it's that which makes it easy for my body to hang off his and lock up a trap triangle. Now I bring my arm through and punch it over the top, hold on to my training partner's head. And as a result, we can make a quick turn around the corner and into a strong strangulation position. Okay? Let's give it a try. Now, I want to switch topics now. We've seen a lot of ways to enter into the front triangle. We've seen a whole host of ways that we can do this. Now I want to look at a different method. We're going to threaten other forms of submission. Our opponent reacts to that threat and gives us what we really wanted all along, an entrance into the triangle. One which many jiu-jitsu players are familiar with is the idea of threatening an arm lock and then attacking with a triangle. I'm going to show you just the Jiu-Jitsu 101 method of doing this, and then look at my own method, which I believe has some advantages. Okay, we're working from a closed guard, and from here in Jiu-Jitsu 101 we go to control an arm lock. We get a hold of our training partner's wrist, elbow, he's got his arms on, and from here we place a foot on the hip, etc., etc. We come all the way up to the side, and then however we do it, we go in, turn, and find ourselves in Jujigatami. If my opponent goes to yank his arm out, from here I let the arm go, I bring my leg around the other side, and then I turn across in the opposite direction, and we go into the triangle. Okay, nothing wrong with that method. It's been around for years and works exceedingly well. However, I suspect most of you have already seen that, so you don't have much interest in it. Let's look at a slightly more advanced method, which I believe works better in competition, and then look at a much more advanced method, which happens to be my personal favorite way of doing this transition from a threat of Jujigatami, a threat of an armbar, and a switch to a triangle. So, a more advanced method involves a more advanced approach to arm locking from bottom position. When you first start off the sport, it's usually good enough just to come in and trap someone's arm. Okay, they don't really know what arm bars are, they don't really have a sophisticated set of defenses, and so from here it's usually enough just to turn to an angle, and then from here turn off the arm and go into an arm lock. Okay, then you go with better and better guys, and they recognize the danger of this grip. They see that's an arm lock coming up, they see the foot on the hip, now that confirms their initial suspicions, and they're already pulling out, the head's moving away, and now not only do you not get an arm lock, there's not really an effective transition to a triangle either. Okay, so at upper levels, people typically use a two-stage approach to arm locking. Typically what you'll see is some kind of postural control, and then from here they'll draw the elbow across the center line and they'll throw their legs up into a position which I often refer to as a top lock, where my feet lock on top of my opponent's shoulders rather than a traditional closed guard position in the lower back. Okay, because the lock is much higher, when my opponent goes to posture up and away, it's much more difficult for him to pull away from me. That's going to force him to put his arms in a defensive configuration, like so, and as a result, now we get a second opportunity to go into the arm lock and hold it balance. From here we turn and go in like so, into the arm lock. Okay, so this will be a more advanced form of the arm lock. Once again, we, instead of just going in here and getting a 2-on-1 grip, we go through, we control our training partner's head, and we throw everything up into a top lock. As he goes in to defend himself, we go to turn the corner, and from here we find ourselves in an arm bar. Okay, the beauty of this top lock is it offers great opportunities to make a switch, an early switch into a triangle. So I go to control my training partner's arm, I hold everything in and lock. Now my opponent sees, okay, there's a danger here of a triangle. It's not difficult to read, but if he goes to pull his elbow out at this point, as I lose the elbow, you gain the triangle on the opposite side. It's just so easy. He's literally given you a trap triangle. As a result, it's very easy for us to go in on either side and start making turns up and away and into winning positions. Now when we lock the figure of 4, you go right into a winning position. Once again, from a situation where we start off, we draw our training partner forward, we go in and capture head and arm. Now, from here, we lock up a top lock. My opponent recognizes the potential danger. If he doesn't move from here, it's pretty easy for us to start making a transition into arm locks. So he's in his best interest to pull the arm free. When he does so, you're left with a trapped triangle on the opposite side. As a result, it's very easy for us to catch, make a turn, and then from here find ourselves in triangle territory on the opposite side. Okay, so that's perhaps a more realistic way of managing the transition from armbar to triangle. However, it's not my personal favorite way. My favorite way involves a slightly more advanced way of working our way into the armbar itself and forcing a real dilemma between either a broken arm on one hand or a triangle on the other. Let's have a look at this. From a situation where someone is in the closed guard, most of the time they're going to have hands on biceps like so. Okay. From here, I'm going to go through with my arm and I'm going to pull in with my legs like so. So his hand goes on the mat behind me. Now, I don't go to grab my training partner's arm. That conveys immediately that I'm interested in an arm lock. Instead, I grab the head. So there's no warning of an arm lock or anything like that. Make a strong body. Now, from here, I turn onto my side. I scoop inside my training partner's leg, and from here, I use a big leg action to come out wide and hook onto my training partner. As he goes to yank his arm out, it's stuck in place. It's very, very hard to get away. And very often from here, you'll go straight into an arm lock. However, if for whatever reason your opponent is able to extract his arm, he goes immediately into a trapped triangle. And it's not a difficult thing in these situations to start clearing everything across, scooping inside the leg, and from here making a nice transition into a triangle stranglehold. So he starts hands on biceps. From here we go inside and we draw him forward. We go up and we catch our training partner at the head and the leg. I start an action of turning, so I go onto my side and then I practice the skill of throwing my legs around the corner. If he does succeed in pulling his arm out, he immediately gives me what I really wanted, a trapped triangle on the other side. Now it's a relatively simple thing for us to start an action of turning off the shoulder and strangling for the finish. One of the great advantages of this method is that it creates a very strong sense of dilemma in my opponent. So we go in, we catch, we make an initial turn. If my opponent doesn't react, that arm lock is right on. Not only is it a tight arm lock, it's exceptionally tight because his arm is caught behind my tricep. So when he goes to yank his arm free, it's a very difficult thing. And it's a very, very tight lock for the finish. Okay? If, on the other hand, he is so quick that he does pull out, but the head is still controlled. So when he tries to posture up, he can't get away. And as a result, we can lock up all manner of triangles in this position. Of course, you don't only have a front triangle in this situation. You can also go in and lock the Hantai Senkaku from the same situation and strangle for the finish. Whether you end up with Hantai or front is up to you. They're both readily available from that position. This is a very, very high percentage way of transitioning from arm lock activity into triangle activity. Now let's continue with this idea of working from a submission hold and then back into a triangle. We just looked at the armbar Jujigatami from closed guard situations. Now let's go to the armbar Jujigatami where we've pinned our opponent down on his back and we're ready to attack. So we have an athlete who's down in a classic Jujigatami position. Now, whenever we go to work in a position like this, the first thing we're looking for is stability. Very often from here, they're locking their arms in tight defensively, etc., etc. We're going to put our hand on our own thigh, just like so. And we're going to practice the skill of taking our legs out of alignment. If my legs are aligned dead straight, my opponent explodes into me, I tend to fall straight backwards. Okay? So we want to misalign our legs. I take my foot and I come back to my training partner's ear, and my second foot comes up here, and I come onto my elbow. Let's move around a little. Just like so, okay? So we're propped on our elbow, my hand is on my own thigh, and my legs are at an angle. I have what we call asymmetrical legs. Here my legs are symmetrical, both facing the same direction like so, okay? I come down to an elbow, and I invert my knee, so my knee points down at the mat. One leg is hooked back, and the other is hooked up into the armpit, and the lower legs are pointing in slightly different directions. This is going to enable me to get my knee inside his bicep, so that my knee takes the inside position. This makes it very easy for me now to take my foot and touch close to my own knee and start to push a space into which I can pass my right foot. Now, my opponent must re-lock his hands or face an arm lock danger. Okay? Now we come up into a situation where both of my feet, let's come around this way, are over my opponent's shoulder. My 2 feet pull in tight, like so. I'm still propped up on my elbow. Now, from this position, I'm going to go in and catch my training partner's leg and bring his head up off the floor. The exposure of his head up off the mat makes it very easy for me to take my cross-faced leg off and put my knee in behind my training partner's neck as a wedge. Now I bring his head forward and we lock the figure of 4. When my training partner tries to pull away from me in a situation like this, it's very, very easy now to apply a stranglehold with the legs and finish. Once again, we start off just like so. He has his arms in a good defensive position like this. We're going to misalign our legs. Okay, so I go from symmetrical legs to misalignment like so. My knee goes just inside my training partner's bicep. In this case, it's my left knee. It just goes just inside. Now from here, right foot goes up to the knee, and we start an action of pushing until we can thread our foot inside like so. Okay, as my opponent goes back into a defensive arm position, we're going to go through and catch our training partner at the knee and bring his head off the mat. Now I take my cross-faced leg and I bring it around the corner and behind my training partner's neck. As a result, we can easily lock the figure of 4. When my opponent tries to come up and complete the movement, he's stuck because of his knee controlled here by my leg. Now from this position, we apply the stranglehold and it's done. This is a very, very effective way of transforming a stalled armbar situation into a very good front triangle strangle. So once again, we have an opponent here in a classic armbar situation, flat on his back. Our first thing is to create misalignment. So my body turns to an angle. My left foot comes back to my training partner's ear, and my 2 legs lock in nice and tight. My knee just inside his bicep. Now I connect foot and knee together so that I can push and take the 1 in, 1 out situation. My foot locked in here like this. Now I need to bring his head off the mat. Even if he keeps his head down towards the floor, when I reach across and pull, it brings everything up off the mat. Now I place my knee behind his head as a wedge, so when he tries to bring his head back down, there's a wedging force in place. Now from here, we lock the figure of 4. We draw everything inwards, and from here, it's an enormously tight strangulation for the finish. This is a beautiful way to go from a stalled Jujigatami armbar attempt and turn it into a highly efficient stranglehold with your legs. We're looking at the idea of taking other submission holds and converting them into triangle attacks. We've just looked at Jujigatami, the standard armbar. We've looked at 2 applications of it and how we can turn that into good front triangle attacks. Let's look now at one of my personal favorite submission attacks. Now, it's an odd thing that it's one of my personal favorites because it actually doesn't score many submissions in international competition. I like it not just as a submission hold in itself, but as a means of opening up my opponent to other submissions. This is Urigatami, or the straight arm lock as it's often referred to. Urigatami is always a serious threat to your opponent. If he doesn't react to the threat, you will break his arm with it. Now, is it the tightest, most high percentage? No, it's not. It's probably fair to say it's easier to escape from than many of the other major submission holds in the sport of jiu-jitsu. But it scares the crap out of people. And as a result, they tend to overreact with the defensive reactions, and it opens up a lot of other submissions. One of those submissions is the front triangle. Let's look at a situation where we've got an opponent working in our guard. And from here, we've managed to secure any form of underhook, okay? It might be because I got a collar tie pulled through, and now we have our underhook in place. Once we get that underhook, I like to set it up with a variation of the clamp, where I have a knee right here in front of the shoulder, a knee behind, and now I have an extended arm with an underhook. As a result, I'm able to go around and put severe pressure on my opponent with the Urigatami. In general, I like to put my hand on my own elbow, move my hips away from him and my head towards him, and we get a strong submission attack. If my opponent doesn't react to the attack, he'll be finished right here. Okay. So what happens is they all start doing the same thing. They start bringing the head up and the elbow turns in and they save themselves. That's always what they're looking to do. Okay, there are other escapes to this move, but this is almost always the first one that's employed. It has to do with head position. As his head comes closer to me, it becomes easier for him to rotate the elbow and take away the danger. Okay, so anytime we're in here and attacking with Udigatame, it's a battle for head position. Okay, if I ever feel that I'm losing that battle and the Udigatame is being lost, I will extend my leg across my training partner's shoulders and put my foot inside his shoulder on the far side. Now, as his head comes in towards me, I use foot penetration. My foot comes back, and as I lose the Udigatame and he turns in, we catch right over the top, and we go directly into the trap triangle. As always, from the trap triangle situation, we cover the head and we scoop the legs. And as a result, I'm able to bring my feet pointing well forward. Now, from the situation, we go through. My knee is a wedge behind his head, so that when we lock the figure of four, everything's in place, and we get a good tight strangulation. Once again, from a situation where we work in front of each other like so. Now, from here I go in, I secure an initial underhook on my training partner, and I pull my training partner down into a position rather like the clamp. Okay, my knee in front of the shoulder on one side, behind the shoulder on the other, but unlike a clamp where I'm over the arm, here we're under the arm like so. Now from this position, I start an action of attacking the Udigatame. When I feel it fail, I touch my knee and ankle together on the far shoulder. I use that to extract, and I penetrate with the foot over the top of my opponent's neck, and we lock up the trap triangle. From here, as always, we go into control posture. He goes to posture up. My left hand makes it difficult. Go to sit up. And then from here, we scoop inside our training partner's leg and pull him into a situation where we can lock the figure of four and finish with a good strangle. This is an excellent way for us to take a failed Udigatame and go into a front triangle and get a submission win. Now, another fine submission hold that we can often employ to set up triangle attacks is omoplata. Many is the time you'll attack with an omoplata. It's relatively easy to get into, but many is the time you'll fail to actually finish with it. It's a difficult move to actually put someone away with, especially without the benefits of a gi. A very common defensive reaction to the threat of a strong omoplata is a forward roll to relieve pressure. Okay, and this will often set up excellent opportunities to attack with a triangle. So if we have an opponent around here in front of us, just sitting up, and we're working from any kind of standard guard type situation, we're going to go down and apply the clamp position, as we so often do. My knee in front of my training partner's shoulder, just like so. My second knee behind the opposite shoulder. So when he goes to yank out, it's not an easy thing. From a situation like this, it's not difficult for us to feed our foot through and across in front of our training partner's face and head. And as a result, we're in a position now where we can start to go around the corner and into an omoplata. Now, from here, it's a race for head position. He wants his head coming upwards. As the head comes up, he becomes less and less vulnerable. So our whole thing is to try and keep the head down. So when he goes to rise with the head, we want to use our straightened leg to push and bring the head down long enough that we can set up and start to threaten our training partner. Now, if he's naive and stays in a position like this, trouble will soon ensue. Okay? So what many of your opponents will do in this situation is capitulate into a forward roll. When we see the forward roll happen, we extract our arm and we bring our head well forward. My leg is going to come around behind me, and as he comes up into the forward roll, we drive across our training partner and we hug the tricep just in like so. Now from here, I post my hand on the floor and I back step across my training partner's body, and we lock up the one in, one out situation like so. Okay, we're in the perfect position now to take our right foot, bring it out, take our left foot and come around the corner. I catch my training partner and we find ourselves now in a mote sankaku, the front triangle. As my head comes down, the feet become light, and we can quickly lock the figure of four for a strong strangulation clinch from either top or from bottom position. Let's have a look at all those details again. We'll start off facing in this direction. From here, we start off looking at a fairly conventional situation. we place our foot on our training partner's opposite hip, and from here we go into the clamp position. Now, I use the angle offered by the clamp to pass my foot through and around my training partner, and we turn and come out to the side. From here, I use my left leg like a pendulum. He wants to bring his head up, so there must be weight on my inside leg, and then the pendulum with the outside leg so we can come up and do a good attack. Now, he wants to bring that head back up. If the head rises, he will put me back to my back. So it's very, very important that we take everything out and away to the side. As a result, he must now go into some kind of forward roll. When I see that happen, we put our two hands down and we catch our training partner right here, like so. Now I get a good opportunity to back step around the corner and lock up. Okay. From here, I rise, my foot comes out, I capture my training partner by the head, and I switch into a Mote Senkaku, the front triangle. Now we're in the perfect position to rise, lock, and strangle for the finish. This is an excellent sense in which we can make a very, very clean transition into the front triangle out of a failed omoplata. Hips to move left and right and build the triangle. Okay, that was the first big thing we looked at. Now we're going to go into the second big theme of this class, and this is one that runs throughout our entire approach in school. This is the idea of targeting upper body and lower body. Okay? Whenever you work from guard position, there's always a basic dichotomy in what am I going to attack. Will it be upper body or will it be lower body? As a general rule, if someone is on two knees, it's going to be hard for me to go straight into their legs and attack the lower body. At some point, I've got to get his knees off the floor, no matter how I do it. Either he willingly took a knee off the floor by standing, okay, or me elevating him up into the sky. Something's got to get his knees off the mat, whether it's him or me. Okay, until that happens, there's no attacks on the legs. So as a general rule, when someone stays down on two knees, most of our attacks will be to the upper body. Okay. Now, around 90% of the defenses to upper body attacks involve some kind of posturing up and away from those. And it's exactly then that the lower body starts to become vulnerable. Once you understand that simple insight, you're going to see that there's a repetitive pattern in most of our attacks from guard position. They start at one end and they go to the other. So we either start attacking the legs, and then when he brings everything back down to the floor, we go to the upper body. Or if he's down on the floor already, we start at the upper body, he goes up and away from the floor to defend himself, and we go into the legs. Okay? It sounds simple, and it is. Like all good things in life, it's simple. But it's one thing for something to seem simple conceptually, it's another thing about to do it against someone who doesn't want it to be done. Okay? So, yeah, correct. It does seem like a simple idea, but getting it to work in competition is not so easy. So, let's look at a situation where we start off with one of our favorite triangle attacks. Okay, it's very simple, very effective. From here, I take one of Brian Glick's hands to the center line, just like so. So I put my hand on the outside of his hand. Normally, we're always battling for the inside position. Okay, that's our game. But sometimes we'll start outside. This is one of those times. I take my hand to the outside position. That's normally pretty easy because most of the time our opponents know we're fighting for the inside position. So they tend to keep their hands very close together and give us the outside position very easily. Now I physically push his wrist to the center line. I take my hand and I lock it over the top, and I come and I take an elbow 2-on-1 grip. As Brian Glick goes to yank away from me, I bring my body in close and my elbows come back to my side, and I put his hand very close to my hip. I measure and regulate distance through the use of my foot on the hip on the same side as the trapped arm. So when Brian tries to push into me, the foot regulates distance. When he tries to pull away from me, the upper body grip regulates distance. Okay? And now we have an unweighted leg. That unweighted leg is very hard for him to track and monitor. He would like to grab it to prevent me from hitting a triangle. But an unweighted leg moves very, very freely, and it's very, very hard for him to stop me from going up and attacking an initial triangle. As soon as we get that initial attack, you know what your opponents do. They all want to posture up and away and break the grip of my triangle. So if I have my trap triangle here and he postures up, boom, he breaks my triangle apart. That's always what they're looking to do. Whenever we see them starting to posture up and away, we pull in with our knees. Okay, so as he postures up and away, he finds it difficult. It gets more difficult when I put a hand on the back of his head. Now my opponent reasons to himself, the only way he's going to posture now is to actually physically stand up. Okay? And from situations like this, you can start thumb posting on my knee, etc., etc. Whenever we see this, we're always going to go through and bring our body into a situation where I can grip here, above our training partner's knee. As I feel I'm starting to lose the triangle, watch my outside leg. The outside leg comes through and it makes the first contact here, behind my training partner's knee. Why is it the outside leg? Well, if Brian Glick goes to throw my leg by and pass my guard, my outside leg keeps me aligned with my opponent. Come back. If I make the mistake of going in with this leg here first, there's no contact. And if my legs get thrown from here, he's past my guard. Okay? So it's always the outside leg that goes in first. Look how as I feel I'm losing the triangle, I bring my foot to my buttocks so that the distance I have to cover is very small. And as a result, he goes to push his pelvis forward and throw my legs by. It means nothing. Now all I do is just shift and we're into X guard immediately. As soon as we get into X guard, our first thing is to put his hands on the mat. So I take my knee, I bump, and get his foot off the floor, and as a result, his hands go straight down to the mat. Now from this position, I switch from X guard into reverse X guard. And as a result, we can quickly bring him up into the sky and lock the figure of 4 around his legs. From here, we bring everything up, make the necessary adjustments, and from here, we go straight away into our finishes. So we started with an upper body attack. Our opponent went into a standard defensive movement, and we finished lower body. Once again, we go in, we push his hand across the center line, we go in, elbow 2-on-1 grip. From here, we quickly go in and lock up an initial triangle. As he goes into a standard defense, he goes to push away, I scoop above his knee, locking in just like so. Now as I feel I'm losing the triangle, my outside leg pulls down and hooks in. So that even as I lose the position of the upper body, I've gained lower body with the X guard in place like so. Now, I bring my knees to my chest, I bring his foot off the floor and drop his hands down to the mat. As a result, we're in perfect position now to switch our feet from X guard to reverse X guard. As always with reverse X guard, our whole thing is to take his hips directly over our head. So I bring my knees into my chest and lift so everything goes overhead. As my lower back comes up off the floor, we lock, figure of 4, and find ourselves in a superb attacking position. We lock up, but he goes to twist, turn, move away, etc. It's such a difficult thing. My hands go inside, I lock over the top, and there's my heel. Now as my hands come into a good position, look, I just kick on through, and we get the finish. Okay? Let's give it